Welcome to the Cosmic Busker. My name is Bobby Cody. In this video I want to take a look at, it's essentially an article I found and a video on YouTube that I found. Both of them cover climate change. I want to kind of combine the two, the article and the video, and take a look at both right now. The video, I'm going to start with the video first. The video comes from Anton Petrov is his name. He has a YouTube channel. I'll put a link up to his YouTube channel there so you can check it out if you'd like. He's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. The reason for that is he does a good job of handling mostly science and some technology and space type of news information. He covers it, does a good job of it. He had a video the other day that kind of bounced off another article that I saw, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do both. But that video that Anton Petrov had on his website was, new research suggests Earth lost 9.6 trillion tons of ice. Here's why. And while maintaining a good neutral stance throughout the video, he does tend to present that this is evidence of man-made climate change. I want to refute that, and I'll explain why I refute that. I'm going to go over this study, though. First, the study basically took information from universities and research facilities all over the world and combined all of this information regarding ice loss across the world and attempted to calculate how much ice the Earth, the entire planet, has lost since 1961. It said 9.6 trillion tons of ice. That's a lot of ice, there's no question about that. The question is, why is that happening? And what you have to realize is that there have been massive climate change swings throughout Earth's history. This is nothing different. This isn't alarming, despite the fact that they try to present it as alarming. We have a lot more important and dire issues to face other than what is a hoax. There's not a question about it, and I'm not stating we shouldn't be good stewards of our environment. We should, and one of the reasons I should state before I go into this, I was in the 80s when I was a teenager. I was global warming. I was right in on it, and I saw the predictions. By then they were saying by 1999 or 2000, sea coasts are going to change. It's going to be flooding, fear mongering. Eventually, you start to research, and you gradually get more and more information. You start to realize that it's just fear porn. They're attempting to manipulate you, and climate change is serious. It does happen. It has drastic effects on civilization. There's no question about it, but it has always happened. Just normal. So what I want to refute is a couple of points that Anton makes, which I can show you why this is part of a hoax and this isn't proper science or thought. And he does a good job. He mentions causation versus correlation, that this, just because there's a correlation here that you see doesn't mean it's causing it. And he does a great job of covering it. But one thing he mentions is the Greenland ice. And he talks about how Greenland, if we lost all Greenland's ice and this and that, Greenland has lost significant parts of this ice sheet in the past. It's warmed up significantly in the past. Around 1000 AD, it was much warmer in Greenland, according to ice core sheets. There's a reason why it was, you can obviously tell it was much warmer. It's proven in the ice cores, yes. I'll show you that right there. You can see it's warmer, but it's called Greenland. Why is it called Greenland? They can try to change around the story, because they're trying to make it attractive. The Vikings, when they discovered it, ice cores show it right there. It was much warmer. See that spike? 1000 AD. No question about it. I'll be right back. I have to change videos. So we're talking about Greenland. Greenland's ice sheet has receded significantly in the past. I believe this is 120,000 years ago. It's much warmer than it is today as well. Things move on. We have much more dramatic things that could potentially happen that we need to protect ourselves other than from a global warming hoax. There's one other aspect on Anton's video I want to touch on. That is the greenhouse gases versus temperature rise, where he presents a graph and he shows temperature rise and he correlates it right with the rise in greenhouse gases. There's various ways this can be hoax to you. I would like to take a serious look at the data and where it comes from. Because when you do temperature rise, when they use the temperature rise, I've seen in the past, they specifically put it in places where lots of sunlight, so it's going to keep warmer. They put it in urban environments to begin with, and I'm not saying that we don't cause localized climate change. We do. That is irrefutable. There's called the urban heat effect. We warm up localized environment, and that's where they put the temperature gauges, where they measure things. So what they're doing is putting all these temperature gauges in places that are urban environments where we do have a localized effect and we do raise the temperature. There's no question about it, a couple degrees, and that presents an illusory effect that we're causing global temperature change, which we are not. You have to have a sense of how vast the Earth is to realize that the small areas that we may be warming have little to no effect. Anton uses a globe. I would encourage him to turn that globe around and look at the Pacific. It covers half of the Earth. You turn a globe around, which I'll do right here. I'm going to put a globe on here as well so you can see. You turn it around, you look at the Pacific. It's half the globe. It's where little to no people are. To suggest that the little pinpricks of little bit of warming that we produce has this massive global effect is beyond any sense of scale or understanding. Now, regarding that temperature rise, he also points to they also measure greenhouse gases, and they could correlate, look at the rise in greenhouse gases compared with the rise in temperatures. Yes, and where are they measuring these greenhouse gases? Again, in urban environments locally where humans concentrate. And once again, we're talking about a localized effect. I would point to the same thing. So I'm not, that graph and that temperature rise, yes, that is proof of localized temperature change that humans do have. You have to understand the vast scale of this planet compared to what we're doing in order to understand that that graph means little to nothing. So again, provide a link down below and to his video as well. I want you to have his video. I've done some past videos on climate change too that I'm going to provide links for. They'll pop up in the corner there so you can take a look at those if you'd like. If I remember, I'll put them down below as well, so you have access to all information, make up your own mind. Next, I'm going to take a look at this article that I found. I'm going to move on from the video to the article, and where it refutes a BBC program that was done. BBC is the British Broadcasting Corporation. It's essentially the government arm of the English media, the English government. It's a broadcasting company owned by the government. It's a preeminent English broadcasting medium. We're going to take a look at an opinion article. Okay, this comes from Aletho News. There's a couple of opinion pieces here on Aletho News. Stated April 21, 2019, reads, David Attenborough's BBC show would have been better called Climate. Change the facts. If you are going to present a film called Climate Change, the facts, the very least you should be doing is, well, presenting the facts. Well, here they are, in two of the areas which made up such a hefty part of the film, wildfires and hurricanes. Are wildfires increasing? They are, according to Attenborough. One of the scientists who take part in the program, Professor Michael Mann of Penn State University, goes so far as to say there has been a tripling in the extent of wildfires in the western U.S. He is not specific about his evidence for this claim, nor said over what time frame wildfires are supposed to have tripled, but is not a fair assessment of the data. Collected by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, this shows no upwards trend in the number of wildfires in the U.S. over the past 30 years. The same will be true for hurricanes. If you are a child for whom hurricanes are a novel phenomenon, watching the film will give you the impression that hurricanes are pretty much a function man-made climate change. A voiceover, indeed, makes the claim that climate change is causing greater storms. But again, the data on cyclone activity in the Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, and Caribbean does not support the idea. Figure 1 shows a very slight upwards trend in the number of hurricanes occurring in these waters, but a flat or perhaps slightly downwards trend in the number of hurricanes making landfall in the U.S. There are two other methods of measuring hurricane activity which are used by the EPA. The first, the Accumulated Cyclone Index, shows no obvious trend the past 70 years. The second, the Power Dissipation Index, shows an upward spike in the early years of this century, followed by a reversion to mean since then. Not that this seems to prevent documentary makers like Attenborough resorting to footage of houses being demolished by winds and lorries being blown off bridges to show the supposed climate change we are already experiencing. It is little wonder that terrified kids are skipping school to protest against climate change. Never mind climate change denial. A worse problem is the constant exaggeration of the subject. I had thought David Attenborough would be above resorting to the subtle propaganda, which others have been propagating, linking every adverse weather event to climate change, but apparently not. It comes from Ross Clark at The Spectator on April 20, 2019. Here we have in front of us a second opinion piece from that same Aletho News. I want to go over this one too, because it's a pretty good point. We have already seen what can happen when panic determines policy. Without making this clear, the film revealed one of the worst examples of this unfortunate effect. A powerful sequence showed an orangutan fleeing loggers who have been eradicating Borneo's forest, or rainforest. It's disastrous for both wildlife and the climate because, as the film pointed out, a third of global emissions are down to deforestation because giant trees lock up a lot of carbon. But why are Borneo's forests being cut down? The reason, as Attenborough said, is palm oil, a lucrative crop used in products ranging from soap to biscuits. Unfortunately, he left out the final stage of the argument. Half of all the millions of tons of palm oil sent to Europe is used to make biofuel, thanks to an EU directive stating that by 2020, 10% of forecourt fuel must come from renewable biological sources. To put it another way, misguided action designed to save the planet is actually helping to damage it. Another example of a misconceived effort to save the planet is Drax Power Plant in Yorkshire, which is fed, thanks to £700 million annual subsidy, by renewable wood pellets made from chopped down American trees while pumping more CO2 into the atmosphere than the coal used before it. There are times when climate propaganda, for this is what this was, calls to mind the apocalyptic prophets of the Middle Ages.
who led popular movements by preaching that the sins of human beings were so great that they could only be redeemed by suffering in order to create a paradise on earth. Perhaps this is how Attenborough, nature journalism's Methuselah, sees himself. But climate change is too important to be handled in this manner. It needs rational, well-informed debate. Too often, cheered on by the eco-zealots of Extinction Rebellion, the BBC is intent on encouraging. Quite the opposite. Comes from David Rose in the Mail on Sunday, April 21st, 2019.
So you can see these opinion pieces point out the EU says, yeah, we got to use biofuel. So they use palm olive oil, and they're burning down trees in Borneo and making things even worse. That's almost always what happens when you try to push this nonsense. Hoaxes lead to make things worse no matter what, because you're trying to fix an invisible problem and you're flushing money down the toilet. Just absolute waste. But I'm sure other people are making money off of other people's misery. Climate change has been, look, for 30 years I've watched people lie about this and push either incomplete information, distortions of reality, or push solutions that end up being worse than the problem they're trying to solve. Happens over and over again. Eventually you get to the point where you see through this baloney and you call them on it, and that's what I'm doing. Climate change is a hoax. Man-made climate change. Climate change does happen. It's perfectly natural. It doesn't mean we shouldn't protect ourselves from it. That's the important thing. We shouldn't be arguing about trying to change our behavior and causing it, because we're not causing it. What we need to focus on is protecting ourselves from it. It happens. It will always happen. It's part of nature. How about focusing on protecting people on the shorelines and building appropriate places, places of refuge for the eventuality that disastrous climate change does happen. It has happened in the past. It will happen again. Focus on protecting people in that manner, and not in trying to blame the people that you should be trying to protect. Thanks for listening.